Module 3, Component Properties, covers the following topics: Properties Association, and Dimensional Data and Grids. The first topic in Module 3 is Properties Association. So once we have completed our component types and groups, we can now take a look at the properties for the component and their associations to those properties. Let's take a look at our component. Let's go back into AutoCAD here for a second. So here is our component that we're going to create and some required data for it. So we do have a connection point, which we'll take a look at in the metadata module. We do have our overall diameter for the cover and then the overall thickness for the cover. So these two variables will need to be created as what we call component properties. Let's see how we would do that. So under the Component Properties tab, if we open that up, we will see the nominal pipe size and nominal pipe size outlet for the component properties. We'll base ours on our nominal pipe size. So we'll take a look at measurable properties and some dimensional values. Under here, we'll see that we do have our diameter as well as the thickness. So if we open up the diameter, we'll see all the properties that have been set for existing components. We will create a new one by right-clicking and creating what we call a new ordinary property. It'll ask for the property name and a shortcut. We'll call it ODC for overall diameter cover. We can put in a description or just leave it blank and click Next. It's going to ask which category to add it to. We'll just click Next because it's in the diameter category. It'll ask us which design systems we would like to add this property to. So we're just going to accept all and click Finish. We now see a new property called Overall Diameter Cover. We'll create one more under the thickness because we have our overall thickness for the cover. So again, we just open that up. We see all the existing thicknesses for the different components that have been created, and we'll add a new ordinary property. Abbreviation OTC, click Next, add it to the thickness, having it available to all design systems, and then click Finish. And we now have our properties set, one for the thickness and then one for the diameter. This will come into play when we create our dimensional data. After closing off all of our tabs, we can then take a look at our component types, see that our flange covers there, our 150-pound class rating, and then we can look at how we associate those properties that we just created. If we click on the flange cover, we'll see the component types. The next tab over is the associated properties. And what we'd like to do is associate those new properties or variables to our component. So the nominal pipe size, which is what we use when we create the types and the groups, that automatically comes in as one of the properties. And we'll search for our new properties that we just created, and we'll see that we have our overall diameter cover and our overall thickness cover. So we can just go in and left-click and drag these down into the properties area where it says they are associated. That down there as well. Others that we might take a look at that we could take use of would be the actual outside diameter of the flange, which is something existing, as well as our flange thickness. These would be existing ones that we could take use of when we go into the metadata. Once we're done, we can click on Apply, Save Changes, and we now have those associated properties. The last topic in Module 3 is Dimensional Data and Grids. So once we have our associated properties, and we can take a quick look at those again, have all of our properties, which will be variables that we'll set up within our component. We can see our component types, our 150-pound class rating, and we can see the categories that will allow us to go in and create our dimensional data. So we have our nominal pipe size, which was when we created our component type. We set it to a nominal pipe size, so that will dictate how it will be input into the 3D modeler. And then we have our two new properties, overall diameter cover, overall thickness, and these tables can be adjusted just by using your mouse and click and drag to make the columns bigger or smaller. So let's look at adding the dimensional data. So we'll click on our 150-pound rating, and then we'll select the component grid. And again, these can be adjusted, make them a little bit wider so we can see some of the information. The first thing we'll do is set which pipe sizes we want available within our component. By default, the values shown are metric. When we first go into the component designer, under our button tab, we can set it to English nominal and let's say English architectural. Now when you select your pipe sizes, you'll see English standard pipe sizes, 2-inch, 3-inch, 4-inch. As our component is a flange cover, we'll take a look at adding 2-inch and larger. So we'll add the 2-inch, 2.5. Keep adding the sizes that would be required within the component. We'll just go 4, and for this sample, we'll just go up to 12-inch. So we'll add 8-inch, we'll add 10-inch, and we'll add 12-inch to this particular component. More sizes can be added Click on Apply to save the changes. We have now entered into the database these official sizes for our 150-pound rating. Component sizes can be added or removed from the selection. For instance, we can get rid of the 2.5 inch just by simply clicking and saying Remove Component. It is now removed from the 150-pound rating. We'll click Apply to save that change, and now we're ready to input the data. For the flange outside diameter and flange thickness, we can have these values come automatically from our property tables that are pre-existing. In order to set these two values, we'd select our flange cover, and then under the flange outside diameter, we can then pick the down arrow and then search and find our flange outside diameter for 150-pound ANSI flanges. For the flange thickness, we can select a flange thickness for a raised face flange. Once we've got those two values set, we can click Apply, and then go back into our 150-pound class rating, and you'll see the values are automatically input, and they're highlighted color yellow to represent that they have come from an existing property table. So now we just have to add in our values for our 2-inch to 12-inch for our overall diameter cover and overall thickness. These values would come from our data sheets. We'll start by inputting the values. First one is 6.5 inch, and we'll continue to add the values. And I've now input all the values for the overall diameter cover. Next, we'll add the values for our overall thickness cover, and we'll start with the 2-inch, which is 1 inch, and we'll add these values in as well. And now I've added the values. The other thing we can do is protect the values, which is recommended. And what this does is in our modeler, when replacing the component, the values will not be allowed to be changed. And again, I'll do all of these. And now we have protected the values for overall diameter cover and overall thickness cover. Finally, click Apply. And now we're ready to move on to the metadata. This concludes the topics covered in Module 3. Please review Module 3 or select the next module.